Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Prot Pally Season 2 of Dragonflight Mythic Plus Guide. I haven't done one of these for Paladin yet because I hadn't played them until the last few weeks of the patch. And man, I was shocked by just how good they are. Like, I knew they were good, they were the meta, but usually I just don't play the meta because it's dumb. But, this honestly is the best class tanking by far. And even with the very minor nerfs that are coming next season, I still see them as being a complete powerhouse. And we'll go over why. So, getting right into it, we'll look at the talents. So, looking at the Paladin side over here, you're going to want to take everything here. There's not a whole lot you want to change around. A couple things. You could change Blinding Light. You could just drop that, move that over here to the Aura's talent, which will let you have Retribution Aura. This is going to be pretty good once you get your gear up and you're able to survive much easier, because then you can drop Devotion Aura and start using Red Aura, which will give you more damage. It'll give your whole party more damage if you don't have another Paladin. So it's a good option of something to have. The other thing to look at is Golden Path. You can have this, or you can drop that and get yourself Blessing of Sacrifice, which lets you keep one of your other party members alive in the event that, they've got a certain mechanic they need to dodge, or if they're a focus target for some particular fight. It's very situational, but you might find some use for it. I don't find it that useful that often, so I typically don't get it. You also have all of these talents down here that you're going to want to get. So just to briefly go in detail, Divine Toll is going to be pretty much your biggest snap aggro / interrupt tool. This makes you an absolute interrupt machine. Not only that, it does a fantastic job of just snapping everything to you very quickly. You're going to get that modified by Divine Resonance. You have an option here. Divine Resonance, after you cast it once, you're going to get Avenger's Shield every 5 seconds for 15 seconds. So basically 3 more casts of it. This is kind of good, also kind of bad. It's kind of hard to tell. You'll have to sim to figure out which one is really going to be better for you. But the other option is Quickened Invocation, which just reduces the cooldown of Divine Toll by 15 seconds, meaning you can cast it more often. So if you find yourself looking for this to come off cooldown faster, you might want to go with this Quickened Invocation option over the just extra DPS from having these go off automatically. The other thing that you're going to want to get is Of Dusk and Dawn. This is another fantastic ability. So basically every time you use 3 holy power generating abilities, so essentially Judgment. So if you use Judgment twice and then Blessed Hammer, you're going to proc your Of Dusk and Dawn, and that's going to allow you to get your next holy power spending ability to deal 30% increased damage and healing. That ability continues to stack. Once you've consumed that Blessing of Dawn, you'll be able to use, or you'll gain Blessing of Dusk, which means you reduce all your damage taken by 5%. Your armor is increased by 10%, which means you have more damage reduction. And your holy power generating abilities cool down 10% faster for 10 seconds. So it's really pretty much a self-licking ice cream cone where you can get it up very quickly. And then after you've gotten, the effect used, it's going to kind of help you use it more often, because you'll be able to get those holy power generating abilities like Judgment and Blessed Hammer that much quicker. So very, very useful. The other thing here, Seal of Crusader, your auto attacks are going to deal an extra 1088 holy damage, but that's not really what we're worried about. We're more worried about the Paragon, which makes Hammer of Wrath and Judgment deal 10% additional damage, and each one of those extends the duration of Avenging Wrath, which in our case is going to be Sentinel, by half a second, which is going to really add up over time. So those are the main abilities to look at. Like I said, you can move a couple things around, but you want to steer clear of things like Turn Evil. Unbound Freedom can be situationally useful. Essentially, you cast Blessing of Freedom on somebody else and you also get it, and you increase your movement speed by 30%. So pretty useful, but it's not always the best option. I tend to go with Golden Path just because it helps get a little extra healing to my allies and myself. Up to you if you want to use this or not. This, a lot of times, may be more useful for the auras. Now, as in Season 1, Cleanse Toxins wasn't really required, but looking at the dungeons we've got, like Underrot, Brackenhide, and Halls of Infusion, all of those have a lot of cleanse requirements. So they have a lot of poisons and diseases, and you'll be able to cleanse them yourself, which is really going to help out your healer and you stay alive. So definitely worth taking, and it's probably going to be what you're going to have the entire season. Looking at this side, on the protection point side, you're going to want to not really move a whole lot here. Pretty much everything in this area is going to be basically required. There's not a whole lot you want to change. You could get rid of Blessing of Spell Warding if you like. It is a 5-minute cooldown, but Blessing of Spell Warden is basically like pretty much the Paladin's version of Anti-Magic Shell. You can use it to negate a lot of different mechanics, and it just makes you immune to any magic effect. It does trigger Forbearance, so it will stop you from casting Lay on Hands or Divine Shield for 30 seconds, so that is something to kind of think about. But it's not bad at all. It's very very useful, really. I found so many uses for it. Anything from, in Temple of Jade Serpent, being able to just avoid that Wise Mari jet stream thing he does, or any other stacking debuff like the Deafening Screech or whatever it's called from Croth and Algathar. I mean, it even will stop you from getting the poison from the Lashers. So very, very useful ability. But you could take it or leave it. You could change it to something such as, I don't know, pick something that sounds good, really. There's a lot of different options here. You really can't go wrong in this tree. Almost everything is really good. But that aside, keep the rest of these things. You definitely want to get Sentinel. Sentinel will replace your Avenging Wrath. And essentially what Sentinel is going to do, currently it's 2% increased damage and 2% increased stamina, and it stacks up to 15 times. Not 2% stamina, 2% maximum health. So it reduces your damage by 2%, increases your health by 2%, and stacks up to 30% initially, and then degrades after that. That is going to be a little bit nerfed next season, so that Sentinel is going to only increase your maximum health by 1%, but it's still going to give you that 2% damage reduction per stack. So it's pretty much an instant 30% damage reduction, plus a lot of extra health along with it. And the other useful thing about this is because of another talent down here, Sanctified Wrath, this one, that'll actually make it so that all of your judgment spells will increase your holy power by 2 rather than 1. So you'll be able to more quickly use Shield of the Righteous, which is super helpful in keeping your mitigation up. And then over here, you can kind of choose between these two. So Focused Enmity is going to make your Avenger Shields hit a single enemy twice as hard, which is good. But I think more often than not, Soaring Shield is going to be a better option. This option here, Focused Enmity, is more of a good talent for single target fights or raids. Soaring Shield is really what you want because it's going to give you 2 more jumps per shield, which when you have Divine Toll going, that's going to be a huge amount of damage and extra threat being added on, as well as it's going to trigger a few other abilities, such as this one here. Avenger Shield increases the damage of your next Shield of Righteous by 20% for each target hit by Avenger Shield. So up to 5 times. So essentially, if you use Divine Toll, this will easily increase your next Shield of the Righteous by over 100%. So that's very, very useful. It also increases the radius of the shield by 6 yards. So very good as well. Another useful ability that you're going to want to make sure you got Eye of Tyr, which is going to do a little bit of damage. It's not a huge amount. It's kind of a decent amount, but it's not anything compared to the 25% damage mitigation that you get from everything you hit with it, which is super useful, and I'll show you why in a minute. And then this one here, Final Stand, is going to be pretty much your bread and butter for anytime you want to do a massive pull. You're going to use your Divine Shield, and it's going to make things so easy. Another thing you can look at, Resolute Defender, you want this for sure, because every 3 holy power you use is going to reduce the cooldown on Divine Shield by 2 seconds. So since it's a 3.5 minute cooldown, you're basically going to try and use as much holy power as you can to reduce that Divine Shield so that it's up for your next massive pull. That's most of the stuff that's worth talking about in the talents. If you had anything else I missed, go ahead and put it down in the comments and we'll talk about it. But let's move on to stats and gearing. So your stat priority is essentially haste should be your highest. I know I don't have the best balance of stats right now. It's just the gear I've gotten doing a few a few mythics. I'm only up to about 2k for my IO, and I haven't done a whole lot of gear building on this alt, so kind of is what it is. But haste is going to be your priority stat. Lets you hit things more often, lets you use your abilities quicker. So you're going to have a lot of buttons to push, and the more haste you have, the more you can push those things. Next thing here is Mastery. Mastery is just an all-around great secondary stat. Essentially, you're going to do more damage. You're going to be more likely to block, so you'll take less damage. Yeah, it also increases the damage that is reduced when you're in consecration, which is also very, very useful. And then versatility is the next up because it's just a flat increase to damage, healing, and reduces damage taken. So a useful stat. Crit is by far the least useful of the talents. You already do a lot of damage as a Prot Paladin, so having crit isn't going to make a huge difference for you in most cases. In general, it's not something you want to get. You just want to take whatever crit you have and don't worry too much about it. As far as gear goes, Elemental Lariat's not going anywhere. That's going to continue to be a thing. You'll definitely want that, and you'll want to make sure you have plenty of haste out of that. You'll want to make sure that you're using the Frostfire Leg Guards of Preparation because of the massive amount of haste that's going to keep buffing you with. You're going to want to have the Onyx Amulet because that's also probably not going anywhere. It sounds like that will definitely be best in slots still. Of course, any crafted weapons you can get are going to be helpful. There might be some useful weapons out of the dungeons. We'll kind of see how that goes. But either way, having a crafted shield or weapon that you can upgrade quickly is going to be super helpful. When it comes to tier set, it's not the strongest tier bonus that we've got, but it's not bad. It's worth getting. So, work towards getting that as you can. If you don't know already, the only place you can get the tier set items is going to be Raid initially, but that will supposedly bring up the Catalyst in June. So you'll be able to get your tier set from there as well. Back to the Onyx Amulet. The couple of stones that you want to get, definitely you want to get Desirous Bloodstone. You'll want that. Prophetic Twilight Stone, and then another DPS gem of your choosing. I like Storm Infused Stone because it will kind of branch out and hit various things, but that is based on crit, so your mileage on that may vary. There might be some other options like the Flame Lick Stone or something that might be better. So just take a look at them, try to sim what you can find, and go with that. As far as trinkets go, we don't really know what the best trinkets are going to be yet, but we'll start to get a better idea as the season goes on. That's just the way these things typically work. So be ready for a lot of changes as that goes around. And then that pretty much covers the gear. The basic rule is going to be the same at the beginning of the season. Just anything that's an eye level upgrade is generally going to be best for you, with the exception of the trinkets. So if it's an eye level upgrade, just go ahead and start using it and worry about the stat balance later. All right, let's move on to the rotation. So the rotation is, it's pretty dead simple. Let's be fairly honest here. So you're basically going to be using Judgment and Blessing and Blessed Hammer to pretty much build up your Holy Power as quickly as you can. Once you've got 3 stacks of Holy Power at a minimum, you're just going to go ahead and use Shield of the Righteous. You don't want to cap your Holy Power. If you overcap your Holy Power, you're just wasting it. Best thing is to just always be using it. Every time you use Shield of the Righteous, it's going to increase your strength and stamina by 2%, stacking up to 3. So you want to try to keep that stack of 3 going as long as possible. You may choose to delay it a little bit as you need to, just to kind of keep things going. But you're also going to want to use Avenger Shield as a opening on most mobs. Bear in mind, it does also do an interrupt. So it will only interrupt the thing that you actually have targeted. It's not going to interrupt anything that it hits because, it will bounce depending on your talents like several times. As long as the thing you hit is the primary target, it'll get interrupted and silenced for a few seconds, about 3, I believe. So that is very useful. You're also going to notice that Word of Glory here, you will get a free one, and it will increase by up to 250% based on your missing health. So the idea behind that is basically you'll get a free Word of Glory every 3 Shield of Righteousness. You don't want to cast it really unless you have a free cast on it, because you're really just missing out, because it's very quick to get it back to free. There are very few times that you would really just want to hard cast it with 3 Holy Power over just waiting for a free one, but it does occasionally come up. You also have, like I was talking about, Eye of Tyr, very strong mitigation ability. Pretty much something that you're going to want to do right after you get out of your Divine Shield is Eye of Tyr, because it's going to, A, help you get a little bit more threat, and B, it's going to give you a little bit of mitigation as well to cover up once you immediately get rid of your Divine Shield and start actually taking damage. Divine Toll, you're going to want to use basically on cooldown. Once you get things pretty much close enough to just use it and hit everything, you'll want to use that. And just every time it's up, use it. It's a very great way to snap aggro. If you don't have it, then, you know, you just kind of gotta make do with Avenger Shield and Eye of Tyr. But otherwise, Divine Toll is definitely what you want to go with. And then Sentinel. Sentinel will basically increase everything that you're doing for the most part. 20% extra damage is pretty big. So generally, I'm going to lead off with Sentinel, Divine Toll, and then just go into my rotation of building up Holy Power, Shield of Righteousness, Avenger Shield. Sometimes you're going to want to hold your Avenger Shield, especially on smaller groups, just so that you can use it as an interrupt. I tend to use Avenger Shield as my primary interrupt instead of using Rebuke, because I have Rebuke pretty much anytime I need it. And then Avenger Shield, if I just delay it slightly till I know a cast is coming, then I can definitely interrupt something that's, you know, helpful to the group, and then use Rebuke as kind of like the emergency, hey, I'm going to interrupt stuff. But even then, don't forget you still have things like Blinding Light. So Rebuke is kind of a thing that's there, but it's not going to be as useful as most other classes' interrupts are, just because you have so many other ways of interrupting things. I mean, you're really an interrupt machine. As far as defensives go, you've got a whole host of things that you can do. I'll go into the AoE big pull method in a moment, but let's just see how the normal rotation works. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with Sentinel. Whoops, that was Divine Toll, but Sentinel, Divine Toll, Avenger Shield, or Judgment, and then throw an Avenger Shield just because I can. I'm already overcapping on my Holy Power, so I'm not paying attention. But as you can see, I'm just basically using up the Judgments, alternating between Blessed Hammer and Judgment to get my Holy Power going. And also worth noting, whenever you use Blessed Hammer, it does heal you for an additional 2% per use. So that's also very, very useful. And you'll notice I'm going to proc a lot of free Avenger Shields all the time too. So try to keep your Avenger Shield on cooldown, because it will be reset whenever that ability happens to proc. This is basically it. You're just going to sit here and do this, building Holy Power and going on and on. And then occasionally using Eye of Tyr just so that you can get a little damage mitigation going. Now, the other thing I hadn't mentioned is Consecrate Aura. So having not Consecrate Aura, but Consecration. When you use Consecration, it's going to do some holy damage to things around you. It's also going to do some slight healing, as you can see, about 548, 544, and it can crit for about, you know, double, obviously. So there are some uses for that, but primarily it reduces the damage you take. So you definitely want to keep that up as much as you possibly can, because obviously extra damage is helpful. Consecrate's just great to have up. All right, so now that we've gone over basically the single target rotation, the AoE rotation is not much different at all. We're basically going to do all the same stuff, but for when you want to do a huge, massive pull, pretty much what you're going to want to do is run up, try to get everything close together, pop Divine Shield. It's going to taunt everything around you, and you're still going to be immune. You can drop your Consecration Aura to make sure that you're getting that damage reduction in. You're going to use your Divine Toll so that you have that going. You're going to make sure you have Sentinel going, and you're just going to be going through your normal rotation as you do. Once Divine Toll wears, or Divine Shield wears off, you'll definitely want to get Eye of Tyr going, so you get this damage reduction debuff on all the enemies around you, which is going to help you stay alive. Once that wears off, you can use Ardent Defender to get your block up, and also reduce a lot of the damage that's being done to you. In addition to that, you're going to want to make sure that you're paying attention to your health. If you start getting low again, you can start using things like Guardian of Ancient Kings, which will give you another good 50% damage reduction. So you're going to stay alive a lot longer that way. And every time you use Shield of Righteousness, it's reducing the cooldown of Sentinel. So, you know, as long as you're going through rotation, you should be perfectly fine. If all else fails and you have absolutely nothing left, you do have the ability to use Lay on Hands, which is going to be a 100% full heal to yourself. Just bear in mind, you do have to wait until Forbearance wears off from Divine Shield, or it will just do nothing for you. So make sure you're paying attention to that. And of course, if you're a Blood Elf, you do have, you know, good racial ability for most Mythic plus dungeons, where you can debuff targets as well as give yourself an extra Holy Power, just so you can throw another Divine Shield out there, or Shield of Righteous out there. There's so many good abilities here, so much in the Paladin kit everything just flows together. It's so simple and it works so well, and I just don't see them losing their spot as the top tank in Season 2 unless some significant nerfs happen before this patch or during, you know, Season 2. They're just such a fantastic class. You also have Intercession. It does require 3 Holy Power, so it's a little bit weaker than other classes' Battle Res, in my opinion. because you have to get that holy power, which costs you a shield of righteousness, which can be kind of painful in the middle of a fight, but you know, it's not too bad. Worst case, you do have something like Flash of Light, and once you get out of combat, you do have the ability to res people, which is another great utility for tanks. So that pretty much covers everything. If you got any things to add, any questions, maybe I missed something huge, let me know. I'll go ahead and add it in and pin the comment, and that'll be it. So if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. It helps me know that you like the content I'm doing. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. So just do it. And until the next time, try not to die.